Oh, watch out, Hope, you're going to get hit.
We're honoured to have Ric's company here as he's the early troop in the Sydney media landscape. So, Ric, tell us a little bit about that and where you're at now with skunkmonk and OFFIS.
Okay, well, OFFIS is a multi-cloud service provider. So we look after. Oh, you want me to hold it? All right, now I can start singing. So we look after a lot of brands, some big ones, some small ones, some infrastructure, all that sort of stuff. Is this actually on?
Yes, it's for the camera.
Ah,
and people at home.
hi everyone.
Hello, people on TV.
So we run 3 types of events, 3 communities, and of course, we all met through all these sorts of great communities. So the one, skunkmonk, which you see our poster down there, is aimed at digital technologists, which I would imagine a lot of you guys are. And so we come up with, cool themes. We've had, the adoption of wearable technology, fashion versus function, fashion 1. The one that's coming up, we'll have one on the 20th, and that one we're going to talk about, what CMOs need to keep their campaigns alive, and so to stop things from breaking, scaling, all that sort of stuff. Bit techie, but we have a lot of fun as well. There's food and drinks. So thank you. We just love supporting communities, and we'd like you guys to be involved in some of ours.
Wonderful words, Ric. And it's a big thank you to these guys. And the event they run, skunkmonk, it is just wonderful. So make sure you look it up, subscribe, and get there. It's a lot of fun. Also, I'd like to bring Gordon, the superhero of organising all the pre-event stuff. Gordon represents Muru-D. So please, a few words from Gordon.
Thank you.
Yes, you can clap. Please.
Guys, thanks very much for coming into Muru-D. I've met most of you on the way up in the lift today. I've given you my pitch then, but just to run the numbers again, we're a startup accelerator backed wholly by Telstra. We've helped 20 early stage technology businesses in the last 2 years reach a global market. We're looking for businesses of 2 months to 2 years old. We invest $40,000 for a 6% stake in equity in your business. We've just opened up another accelerator similar to this program in Singapore, and we've announced a partnership today with River City Labs in Brisbane to help run their initial accelerator. If you have any questions, if you're a startup that's looking for help to grow your business, please come and talk to myself or Audrey at the back with the camera. We are yet to have seen a successful AR or VR application to the Muru-D Accelerator program. We are yet to have seen a successful AR or VR application to many of the other startup accelerator or startup incubator programs around Sydney. It's a massively growing community, and this is something that I'm very passionate about and would love to see an application from you lovely bunch. Thanks very much, guys.
So we're going from big data to big stories, which is a perfect segue to our next star of the show, Roger Lawrence. Put your hands together. Thank you, Roger.
So, do a bit of a poll because I don't want to tell you anything that you already know. That wouldn't make any sense. So hands up if, like me, you once owned a white jacket as worn by Don Johnson on Miami Vice. Okay. Oh, there's one. Okay. There's a Gen Xer at the back. Hands up if you can remember installing your first modem. Ah, okay. Okay, how about if you were under 30 when you got your first mobile phone, your first digital mobile phone, under 30, over 30. Over 30 if you got your first, okay. Under 20 when you got your first digital mobile phone. Wow. Okay, under 20 when you got your first smartphone. Who's actually under 20? I have 4 daughters. None of them are in IT, and all of them will work in IT. My eldest daughter trained as a pathologist. She did a couple of years at Wollongong. She did a 5-year degree. And she's retraining to become an interior designer. Guess what she's going to be using in her job, right? AR. My second daughter is a nurse. Yep, I reckon she's going to be using IT and probably AR and VR as well, and probably imminently. Third daughter's doing a degree, a double degree in social work and arts. But she does drama, she gets in front of cameras, she likes, you know, acting, playing the violin. I reckon she'll be in IT. And the fourth daughter's finishing her HSC at the moment, and I'm not going to talk about that at all. I also, for the second time in my career, have my wife while I'm doing a technical presentation. My wife, Lucy, sitting in the front. Lou is a technologist, but not by choice. But when you're married to me, you don't really get much choice. She's a gifted musician, and a really gifted musician, plays pretty much every instrument. She'll pick it up and go, oh, the fingering's like D recorder. Oh, the mouth is like the saxophone. And then she'll play it. And then she'll listen to a song on the radio. And I'm not going to talk too much about Lucy. She's also a school teacher. Education has to change. It has to change. We've been teaching people for a world that is 200 years old. And that world has changed. Not is changing, it has changed, and education is going to be at the forefront of the change of these technologies. Okay, so without further ado, let me talk a little bit about my presentation. Yes. Oh, I've got a clicker. There we go, that'll help. So I'm going to talk and take you a little bit back. I heard this story. Actually, I was on a TED Talk I was watching the other day, and it's about this map, right? So this map is of upstate New York. And there's a town over, have I got a laser pointer? Oh, the laser pointer doesn't work on the screen. Okay, so if you can see the town of Roscoe over here, and then we go up from Roscoe to Rockland, and then there's a little town called Agloe. Now, Agloe didn't exist. What happened was in 1930, if you were a cartographer, you would draw a map, but obviously everybody else's map would be identical to your map because it's a map of the land. So how do you maintain your copyright? Well, what you do is you put a false town on, and then when another cartographer draws a map and they've got that town on, you can say, aha, you've copied our map because that town doesn't exist. So in the 1920s, the cartographers drew this map, and actually, there's Agloe. And in 1946, Rand McNally, the big cartographer, came up with a map of upstate New York, and it had Agloe on it, and they were taken to court. And they said, no. There's actually an Agloe. What happened was in those 15 years, people would go driving down the road to visit the town of Agloe, and there wasn't one. So they built it. And it's probably the first case, or one of the first cases, of the information that we create actually creating reality. Changing reality, changing the world. Okay, so augmented reality, we've been doing it forever. This is a mile marker on the Appian Way, which is a road built by the Romans. And they, you know, when you are conquering empires, it's probably a good idea to know how far the local town is with supplies and things. So they augmented the land by putting mile markers on so that centurions would know where they are, right? And I was in the Himalayas last year riding a motorbike over the world's highest road. And even in the Himalayas, people put signs to put information and context into the real world. So we've been doing it forever. Yes, digital augmented reality is different, but actually augmenting reality is what we do. I love this picture. I took this picture because how far away is the town of Upshi? You're in it. India is the only country in the world where I've ever seen a road sign telling you exactly where you are. I thought that was brilliant. Okay, so this is me. I was 17. I was in the Air Force in South Africa. And I was on my way to go and stand guard duty. And I kind of, at the time, I wanted to fly. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And I dreamt of a world where, actually, I literally used to do this while I was riding my motorbike on the motorway. I used to imagine that I could hear navigational directions. And I could see a HUD on my helmet. I mean, I was 17 and I wanted to fly in the Air Force and I was riding a fast motorbike. And in 1985, if you wanted that technology, right, so that's augmented reality, right? That's what fighter pilots have been using since 1975. If you wanted that technology, you needed $50 million to buy a jet fighter, right? But then Gordon Moore made an observation. He actually made this observation in the 60s, the late 60s, and he said this. He said that you can double the number of transistors on an affordable processor roughly every 18 months. The impact of that, of course, we know now as Moore's Law, and we basically go, Moore's Law is you double computer power and half computer pricing roughly every year. That's pretty much what the impact is of that. That is, so Intel, great company, kind of missed out on the mobile movement. Like that all went to ARM, and those processors, ARM and the A6 and the A7, the Apple chips. So they obviously dominate in PCs and desktops, so they kind of missed mobile. They are not going to miss the Internet of Things. They are not going to miss the Internet of Things. That is their Quark processor. It's less than 2 watts. It's 2.6 gigahertz, so it switches 2.6 billion times a second, and it's cheaper than that grain of rice. Right? That's the difference that Moore's Law makes. If I had to sell you a coffee every day for 10 days, and I gave you, for 20 days, and I gave you 2 options on how you could pay me. You could pay me $10 a day for the coffee. It's expensive coffee. I could probably outsource it. Or you could pay me 1 cent for the first day, 2 cents the next day, 4 cents, 8 cents, etc. Which way do you choose? Option A or option B? B. Why? Because you're doubling, right? How much money do you make on option B? Option A is $200. Option B is $10,785.75, right? And if you did it for 30 days, you would make $100 million. That's the power of Moore's Law over the last 30 years. That's why AR and VR and IoT and 3D printing and bioinformatics has changed the world. It has changed the world. What QandA said about the feeling of the future is now, the future is now. It really is. Okay, so here's me, again, on a motorbike. This time I'm in Death Valley. And I actually have a Bluetooth headset connected to my phone that I've used in America, England, obviously Australia, South Africa, pretty much all over the world, and it tells me where to go. It gives me navigational directions, and I can afford it. I don't need a $50 million jet. I can do it with a less than $1,000 phone and a $150 Bluetooth headset, and actually that price is going down. Those goggles that I'm wearing, those are liquid image talks, and that's a high-def video camera that I'm actually, who needs to stick an ugly GoPro on their helmet when I can actually do it with my goggles? And that's a picture I took while I was riding a motorbike in the Himalayas. Yeah, that's quite scary because it's like about 300 meters down on the right, and you can see there's no guardrails, and it's a dirt road. You can see the width of my handlebars is pretty much the width of the road, and that's not stopping because he's in first gear and he's going up the hill. So, yeah, but you can see the top of my peak and the bike. All right, so putting augmented reality into helmets kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Like, the reason that augmented reality was in fighter jets, and in fact, I might just go back to that picture. I want you to really, have a look at that picture, right? So how much information is the pilot getting with that augmented reality display? He's getting pitch, he's getting speed, he's getting altitude, he's getting nose up, that's pitch, he's getting yaw and roll, right? He's probably going to get weapons lock, he's probably going to get whether somebody shot a weapon at him, right? Important information. but only the important information. The information that makes sense. All right, so let's go back to our helmet. Okay, so putting augmented reality into the helmet of somebody who's doing something very fast makes a lot of sense, because you don't have the time to take your eyes off what you're doing and put it on a dashboard or try and ascertain from the tree that you're skiing past exactly where you are on the mountain, right? You really want that information. You want it quickly. You want to be able to see it. That kind of makes sense. And my dream has become reality. This is the Scully AR1. Who's heard of the Scully AR1? Okay, so it's a motorbike helmet with AR built in. It was an Indiegogo last year. Massive fanfare, raised $20 million or whatever. They did a world tour. They interviewed Jay Leno and the guy, Dr. what's his name, Vigo from AWS, celebrities, motorcyclists, men in the street. How wonderful is this helmet? You can't really see it, but those are the mirrors, and that's what you would see behind your motorbike with the mirrors. And that arc is what you see behind you with the 180-degree video camera. And then it kind of all went quiet in January. And I thought, oh, no. My dream, my motorbike helmet has died. But yesterday, I got a video, and you can go and search it. I was going to embed it, but it was just too hard. So search it on YouTube. There's a video by the CEO of the company. They've basically been in production. So they've got production happening, and they're going to have helmets shipping in September. Now, because my wife's here, I will categorically state that I have not pre-ordered one. They're $1,500 US. And even though it's my dream helmet, I don't want to spend $1,500 US on a helmet that I don't know if it fits me or not, right? But, you know, when they're in the stores, I might buy one. So here's what you see with the Scully AR1. So that's what you see, and you can see the directions it's giving you, which road you got to turn into, how fast you're going, and then what's behind you. You can also hook to your phone, change your music. You could actually see a map in that display rather than what's behind you. You can do all those funky things. But notice how clean that display is. And again, just the essential information. That's a really important thing. This is what you don't want with AR, right? This is what you don't want in your car when you're driving into the city. As a motorbike rider, the number of people I ride past whose attention is distracted on their phones, even when the phone is in the holder. Don't text, right? Here's what I did when I went through 2 daughters with 50 hours that I had to use to teach them to drive, and 2 daughters at 120 hours, right? So I've done a lot of driving with teenage girls. And one of the things that I did was when I drove them to their first lesson, so I'm driving, I had them in the passenger seat, I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell me all the cars that are around us, right? Done that, awesome. Close your eyes for 5 seconds. And then when you open your eyes, I want you to tell me where all the cars are. And of course, they went, right? Because the traffic conditions had changed in 5 seconds. I said, I challenge you to read a text in under 5 seconds, let alone respond to one. Don't do it. Okay, sorry, that's my public health and safety announcement. But you don't want that. You don't want that clutter in your car, right? That pilot getting his AR display is getting flight information only. He's not getting an SMS from his wife saying, will you go and pick up milk on your way home, right? He's not getting a, oh my God, Tiffany C has made the red carpet. I don't know who Tiffany C is, or even if there is one. But right, not getting tweets on Facebook alerts. He's getting, you are this speed, you need to be that speed, this is the heading you need to go on. That's the information that we need to be giving to people in AR situations. Okay, okay, so that one went twice. Okay, so let's talk about commerce. Where's the opportunity? So one of the things about AR is, so we own a company, HP owns a company called Erasma. Anybody heard of Erasma? If you're in AR, you should know of Erasma. like it's the best AR mobile platform out there. That's why we bought it. Phone at Disneyland and have a look at a Star Wars poster, and you get Star Wars video, and it directs you to where you can get merchandise and things. And the problem with that is it's just, who remembers QR codes? Who's trying to do a startup working with QR codes, right? In 2009, when I was working on a startup, everybody was trying to do a startup with QR codes. Why aren't we doing a startup with QR codes? It's too hard. You take your phone out, you've got to open up the app, you've got to scan the QR code. Yes, there are QR code loyalty cards and things. If I see another mobile loyalty vouchers, I swear. Here's an AR situation where somebody comes and it's as if they're looking at a mirror and they're trying on different clothes. How cool is that? No phone, no friction, no, just seamless. Oh, and by the way, I don't like that color. Let me try the other color. Does my bum look big in this? And it delays for a second, so when I turn around, I can see whether my bum looks big in it, right? Really cool technology, seamless experience. Everybody can do it. My mum can do it. My daughters can do it. My grandmother could do it. That is where AR needs to be, not take out your phone, right, and stick it in front of you. All right. Who saw The Matrix? Not The Matrix, Minority Report. Sorry, Minority Report. So this is a picture of, there he is, Mr. Cruz coming in, and he's had his eyes changed. Do you remember that scene? And then there's these retina, or not retina, iris recognition. And then he walks past and says, you need to be in a Lexus. And wouldn't you like a Guinness right now? And hi, Mr. Yakamoto, do you like those tank tops you bought from Gap last week, right? Seriously. Nobody wants that. If you're doing a startup around AR that is about spamming me when I'm walking down the street, I don't want it, right? So that's to Candace. Where's Candace, the marketer? There you are. Like, that's not what people want, okay? So I agree with you. Beer is social. So how can we use AR in a social space? Here's how we do it. So this was VR, not AR. Who saw this video? Anybody seen this video? Okay, a couple of hands. So here's what happened. Samsung wanted to launch the Samsung VR in Australia. And this couple, he's a contract miner. He works in Queensland. He lives in Perth, which is really odd, because usually you'd expect the miners to go the other way. But anyway, his wife was having her third baby, and he was going to miss the birth. So Samsung VR thought, here's an opportunity for a marketing campaign. They went over to him in Queensland, I think it was Longreach, Queensland, or whatever, and they gave him a Samsung VR, and they put a 3D camera in the birthing suite, and he watched the birth of his third child. Right? And if that doesn't bring a tear to your eye, you're a cold-hearted, or you've just never had children, right? Fair enough. That's how you make that beer social with augmented reality. Connect people to each other. As Scott said, we've been telling stories since the caveman days, since the guy went around the fire to show you what to hunt and what to avoid, right? And since they painted pictures on the walls in the caveman days, we've been telling stories and connecting people to each other. That's where we need to be, empowering people. Okay. So, Ingress. Who plays Ingress? Wow, there's really few people doing AR stuff in an AR room and meetup. So, who's heard of Ingress? Heard of Ingress? Okay, half the room. So, that half of the room, explain to that half of the room what Ingress is. Ingress is this game, and I'm really bummed because in 2009, I was in an incubator much like this, and I joined with a couple of women from the film and TV industry. And we formed a startup called Vice Versa Reality. And here was the deal. They wanted to do alternate reality games. Everyone know what an alternate reality game is, right? So you play it in the street, and you are a spy, or you're a detective, or whatever. What's the problem with alternate reality games? Production cost, right? You've got to set up the auto dialers, you've got to set up the clues, you've got to set up the actors. You can only play it over a certain time. So here was our idea. Our idea was we will use the players to generate the content, UGC, right? User-generated content. Think of a game of Cluedo where all of the players are detectives and all of the players are suspects, and every time they pick up a clue, they leave a clue for somebody else, and then mediate that through augmented reality, right? So you have a game on your phone, and you pick up a clue, and you leave a clue, and all very cool. Unfortunately, we had a parting of the ways. That's what Ingress promises. Ingress promises to be a game. It's an augmented reality game. It's not a detective game. It's basically you're either in the Enlightened or you're the Rebels. Of course, me being a Gen Xer, grew up in Star Wars. Of course I'm in the Rebel Alliance. Come on, right? So I'm a Rebel, which I think is blue. The Enlightened are green. And then you capture these portals, and then you leave mines and things, and you play it through your phone. The problem is that's what they promise, right? That you can see this augmented reality thing over the real world, and this is what the game looks like on your phone. Right? So it's not actually augmented reality at all. It's me just looking at my phone like any other tourist trying to get somewhere and then trying to deploy mines or shoot portals, etc. So, but having said that, whoops, let me go back. Having said that, I still think it's a great idea. If anybody wants to come and talk to me about an augmented reality mediated alternate reality game, we've done the game engine about 6 years ago. Happy to come and talk to some smart developers about that. Okay. Not a visual insight. You don't need eyewear for it, just need your phone. How much augmented reality can we do just using our ears? Right? You can really scare people just using your ears. I mean, how hard would it be to, you go on those cruises around the harbor and they cost like $70 or $100, whatever. Imagine you just got this app, you put it in your pocket, jumped on the Manly ferry for $5, and then as you got to a certain place, the GPS, you had the tour guide in your ears, right? Augmented reality, discovering the city. And you could put any layer over that you wanted. You could put a historical game over that, right? So you now go to P&O or Royal Caribbean, and you say to them, hey, we know that you want to get your passengers into the city and experiencing the city. We've got the chocolate tour of Sydney, and all they need is a smartphone and earbuds and our app. And then you merchandise it through. So I'm giving you plenty of business ideas tonight. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my talk. This is a Google Maps that I did of upstate New York last night. And Aglo exists today because somebody put information that augmented reality, and it augmented reality. Changed the world. I want you to think about this. Everything is actually information. What was it David was saying about the Internet of Things? 85% of the devices that will be connected to the Internet of Things are legacy devices, and the only way we can unify them is through software. Right? So think of every building in the world that's got a heating, ventilation, air conditioning unit. None of those are connected to the internet, but they all need to be connected to the internet. And doors, and lifts, and windows, and appliances. 85% of the things that will be connected to IoT have to be connected through unifying software. And if we can do that by inferring data, rather than actually doing an analog to digital conversion, then we should. All right, so go out there and change the world. I do want to outplay Scott, though, because Scott said something about AR being how many years old? 250 years old? Right, the idea of it. Okay, so here's where the idea of virtual reality came from. A guy called Plato wrote the Republic in 380 BC. So 2,500 years ago, he wrote the Allegory of the Cave, which is about the best explanation of virtual reality that you can still get today. He basically postulated, the Allegory of the Cave is effectively the plot for the Matrix. He postulated that maybe we aren't actually living in reality. Maybe what we see, what we perceive, is not really real. And there is actually a deeper reality that's greater than all of us. So that's me. Thank you very much. You have been a fantastic audience. If you want to find out about me, go to rog42.me. Twitter is rog42, Facebook, LinkedIn, blah, 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 blah. My blog is rog42.net. So more than happy to answer any questions and have a chat and give more business ideas. Get some clever developers working.
Thanks, Roger. So what if we have time for a few questions? And as you said, I'll repeat it for people at home playing on TV. But I guess you could say augmented reality and virtual reality are the richest mediums in a sense. And they supply a high level of, the highest level of surprise and delight and high dopamine and oxytocin levels, which makes us feel good. And your talk did all of that justice. Thanks, Roger. So I reckon we've got 3 questions amongst us before we go into some little pictures of, and then beer and some more brilliant food from that edible Angela. So I saw a hand up. Yes, sir. I guess Jacob is the brains to explain vision down here. I'd suggest you go up and have a chat with Jacob. But the brain actually gets 30 to 40% of what's actually out there in colour. And then with the different jigsaw pieces, it makes up the rest of the picture. And that's affected by whatever you've experienced before. So all our realities are amazingly different, which makes a difference to eyewitness accounts and so on.
Moment. So we double the amount of data of the entire human history every 2 years, And when they switch on the square kilometer array, that'll come down to months. Right? That the square kilometer array is a square kilometer array of radio telescopes being built by CSIRO amongst a bunch of other countries, organizations and countries. And that will transmit 160 terabytes a second of data. So the question then is, where do we store it? How do we manage it? How do we secure it? How do we process it? Especially if Moore's law is coming to an end. Right? Discuss. So there are a bunch of companies yesterday, day before yesterday, Intel and Micron announced a new type of memory called 3D and crosspoint. We announced a new type of memory, we being HP, about a year ago. We announced it, still in research, called the Memristor. And that uses ions rather than electrons, so we can get to much greater densities, much lower energy, like 1,000th of the energy, 1,000 times density, and it's non-persistent. And the beauty about non-volatile memory, it's persistent, sorry, not non-persistent, is if you think of, now I'm going to geek out here a little bit, right? So if you're not technical, I apologize. But it goes like this. You have a processor that uses system RAM because it's really, really fast to put its data in that it processes. Then it uses DRAM, dynamic RAM. That's the memory that you put in your PC, or the memory in your PC. Again, really fast, really expensive, non-persistent, right? You switch off the power, you lose everything that's in that RAM. Then you get to SSDs, that's your flash drives. Those are persistent. They're not as expensive nor as fast as RAM. Then from there you go to hard drives, which is rust, right? It just turns, it's a magnetic disk. Then you go from there to optical, and then you go from there to tape. So the further down this pyramid you go, the longer persistence you have, but the slower the memory, and the cheaper it is, right? So cheaper per bit. The problem that we have with software is because of this hierarchy, and by the way, we've had this architecture since the 50s, since the NIAC machines. Because of this hierarchy, you can have up to 11 layers of volatility through that stack. So think about if you've ever heard of caching, paging, and then you think of file systems. Right? All file systems do is an operating system's way of taking a logical data construct and putting it on a physical disk. And that's because you've got to have that logical construct in memory, and then you've got a physical disk with blocks that you've got to store the information on. Right. Now imagine you could have memory that's as fast as RAM, cheaper, less energy, and it's persistent. Now, 80% of the code that is written is not needed anymore. You don't need structured databases. You don't need NoSQL databases. You don't need file systems. You don't need paging, caching, any of that. It all goes away. So it fundamentally changes the way that we do computing. Then, and it's basically memory-centric computing. Once you've got memory-centric computing, you can now do the processing at the edge because you're not going to have the bandwidth to shift all of the data from the IoT to the cloud. You're going to have to process at the edge. There was a question there, yeah. Yes, so we've prototyped Memris's, but the difference between making one for the lab and making 1 million in the fab is a long road to hoe. Right. So what we're doing with the machine, with the HP machine, which is what I'm talking about, is we'll actually use DRAM, and we'll probably use the Intel Micron crosspoint non-volatile memory, and we'll emulate persistence where we need to. But we're changing the architecture to memory rather than processor-centric. Yeah, effectively. Yeah. What kind of volumes? So our prototype, and I'll end the discussion now, and we can talk over a beer later. The prototype machine is going to be a 19-inch rack with, I think they're looking at like 1,000 processors, maybe 100,000 processors, and 96 petabytes of non-volatile memory. Right. And the reason we've called it the machine is because we don't want people to think of it as a computer that sits in a cloud. There will be watch machines, there will be tablet machines, there'll be like the 100 terabyte tablet, right? So that's the idea. One more question. the above. Like, you will never struggle for a job. In fact, you will struggle for a job, but it's not because of your skill. It's because there won't be big companies employing people, right? There'll be a few, those making processors, for example, and those making Boeing wings, right? Wing roots and jets, and maybe those mining for oil in the oceans. But apart from that, I see a big disaggregation of the multinational corporation because the economies of scale no longer count. Just look at Kodak, Borders, right? Even HP is splitting in 3 months' time. So I see a disaggregation. So anyway, coming back to the education question, short answer, all of those things. Longer answer, we need to teach people to make sense of things. This is why I'm excited about augmented reality, because augmented reality is about helping people make sense of the world. So we need sense makers. We need people who can collaborate with each other, multidisciplinary. Think about an IoT device that measures an old person's, like a Fitbit for an old person. They're not going to wear a Fitbit. So we need fashion designers to design the brooch that measures their pulse and their heart rate, right? We need multidisciplinary thinkers who can work together and computational thinking, critical thinking, working with cognitive load, all of those. Those are the skills that we need to be training.
You heard it here first. Thank you, Roger. That was out of this world. Really, really good. I'm glad we got this recorded. Speaking of which, we've all got to put our hands together like big cymbals in the Sydney Symphony Orchestra for Ming behind the camera. Thank you, Ming. That was brilliant. And thank you, Roger, again. Renata, David, Candice, awesome. Gordon, Audrey, wherever you are. And thank you all for coming tonight.
And can I just say thanks to
I guess he can.
For putting this together. Everyone get a massive cheer, hands in the air, and I'm going to capture a 360 and I'll post it on Twitter if you like.